especially in a conditioned state, then that it may not be possible is one factor, and then also like, or just not sustainable, or could have different reasons. If someone is, we hear in Gyan, in renunciation, there's a lot of emphasis on detachment, but so much so that the idea that things also have a spiritual utility, they don't accept that either. Just everything should be renounced. So in devotional line, it's a little different, that we should be detached from things as, uh, for our own enjoyment, exploitation, whatever it may be. But we shouldn't reject those same things if they have some utility and service that will be uplifting for us. So it really becomes like an honor system of like, outside it could look the same either way, but really the inside is all important. So it becomes an honor system, so that that first verse of Vyasadeva where he says, like, to have your needs met in terms of food, shelter, whatever it is, there's some necessity for that for spiritual life. So to desire those things is not excessive desire. But once you have those needs met, then your main focus should be spiritual culture, and to desire those things more and more and more and endlessly with no limit, just because that's what we like, then that can be, misleading or something. So I don't know. I just wanted to say
that phrase honor system. I think that's an American expression, and
yeah. So honor system
I'm
is
not
like,
so familiar with it.
Honor system is like where you don't regulate something so much by strict rules, but you trust that people will deal with it honestly, or something. It's like if you had, it's like if you, I'm trying to think of just a simple example. If a teacher says, okay, whenever you're done your work, you can get up and go play outside or something, then it's an honor system. If the teacher trusts you to do your work and then go play, they may not check it. They'll just trust you. It's an honor system. Like if you respect it, it can continue this way. People abuse it, then the teacher has to check your work and so it's like, you don't have to regulate things if people are already by their own choice trying to not misuse it. But where you have whatever things that can be misused, and that happens frequently, then you need to be more scrutinizing. There needs to be some rules and checks in place. And so there's an internal component to Krishna consciousness, which is our motivation, our desires, and things of that nature. And a lot of the meaningful progress in spiritual life ultimately happens there. It transpires in the heart, our mentality, our desires, our serving mood. That is something that we want to evolve and purify and increase and all these things. And if that's the goal or the desire motivating it, then there's many types of advice or many types of service a person can do that will be favorable. I mean, just the chief example is, because it's the area that always is, money. It's like money has utility and service. You want to print books, you want to open temples, you want to have a feast. There's a lot of utility for money and service, but at the same time, money is the thing in the world that people go crazy over and completely lose their sense. So it's like, you can't cut it out completely. I mean, you could, but then it's, you can't preach, or there's many types of service that are beneficial for devotees and other people that will require some money. So it's like, you don't want to just reject it, but you need some honor system, because you can't regulate what people have going on inside them. So it's like these things are discussed openly so that we can have some awareness of what type of mood, mentality, and serving nature is the intended target. And then we can do different types of service with that goal in mind, and that will be, it can be helpful. But
that's so nice. That's really, I really like that connection with the practice of Yukta-vairagya, and also in a broader sense, it's very applicable to how we interact with fellow practitioners, with that type of generosity of spirit. And it reminded me of Janardhan Maharaj told me of how one time when Gurudev was giving, was giving an initiation, and maybe he mentioned the 4 regulative principles. But in any case, late afterwards, Janardhan Maharaj asked Gurudev, you when you're giving initiation, you're requesting the devotees, right, that they'll chant minimum number of rounds and that they'll follow these regulative principles. But how can we really be sure that they're actually following that? Like, how can we really be sure about that? How can we really believe them? And Gurudev said, he said very simply, we must believe them. And he said, we must believe them. And he said, because we are living in the faithful plane. So we have no other choice, we have to, there's no other option. We must believe them. It's so beautiful,
And I think, and I something, just my own sort of take on it, but seeing sometimes how Gurudev interacted with people or gave them advice or dealt with them after they made mistakes or whatever the case may be. And it was like, he wasn't surprised to see that people struggle. He knows very well that that's normal. And so his vision wasn't to, like, someone step out of line, then you hit him on the wrist with the ruler, because that doesn't really, that can only help so much. It's very limited. But and I've heard him speak about this, where he said, if someone fails, makes a mistake, whatever, I'll just tell the story quickly, I don't want to talk too long, but he gave a really nice analogy. He said he had a disciple, and I can't remember where they were from in India, but it was a part of India, or he came from a certain, sect or caste that was known to be very wealthy. Like that whole group, that area, they're all successful in business. Many families.
Oh, these are Marwaris. Is that
maybe it must be? I was thinking that. Marwari. I didn't want to say for sure, but yeah, I think it was.
Maybe they're from. Is it Rajasthan? Maybe I'm not sure. Maybe.
And Gurudev asked. He said, I asked a disciple, I said, how is it that they stay so wealthy? How do you all stay so wealthy? How are you all successful in business? And then the devotee said, well, it's not that we're all successful in business, but we all support each other. So it's understood when there's a son or something, like he'll have to, we want him to become a successful, independent businessman and be able to take care of many people and those things. So we invest in him. We give him the money and to set it up, and we give him all that facility. And Gurudev said, but what happens if he said, but don't they make mistakes sometimes? Like, doesn't it fail sometimes? And the devotee said, yes, it happens. Like they fail, they lose the money, they blow the money. And Gurudev said, so then what do you do? And they said, we reinvest in them again until they succeed. And Gurudev said, I was so happy to hear that. He said, we are not money men. Money is not our matter, but we are faithful men. And he said, this is our process with faith. We trust the people. We give them the opportunity. He said, then they'll fail. We see there's failing. And then what do? We reinvest in them again. We trust them again. We give them another opportunity. One day they're going to succeed. So anyway, it was very sweet. It was very nice. And maybe I just want the other points in there that we dang, I just forgot. 1 second, sorry. Dang it, what is that? I just had it in my head.
Well, that was really, really nice. The connection with
It'll come back to me in a
I
second.
heard
I'll
Gurudev too
yeah.
talking about the Marwaris. That was a devotee who came from a Marwari family who you're
Yeah, and I didn't, when I heard him tell it on the tape, it wasn't the actual conversation itself. It was Gurudev speaking about that conversation. He was just relating that, and one tape I listened to, he was relating that. Oh, this was, sorry, I remember my point now, is that, you know, if you're back to the idea of an honor system, it's like, if you teach someone something, if you take a child and you really force them to do good in school, like you give them no option, like they come home, they can't play with their friend, they can't do anything until it's like top notch all the time. Well, I don't know, maybe it's a cultural American thing, but generally you can have a student that's straight A all the way through high school, everything, gets accepted into a college on a scholarship and all these things, and it's the parents or the pressure of the family was the main force that got them there. And then as soon as they go to college and they're out of the house for the first time and have their freedom, they completely go wild, and like everything comes crashing down. It's a thing that happens and they end up getting kicked out or whatever it is. And at the same time, there's another, and the reason is because the motivation wasn't so much internal of their own, it was the pressure of the family or something that was keeping it going. And there's another way to do that or think about it, where if a student, just for their own self through high school or whatever the stages, they come to like getting an education, they like the knowledge, they like doing well, they like learning it, they like getting it right, then it's a matter of their own personal responsibility to themselves that's motivating them. And if they get into a college or something, they'll generally do well because it's just continuing on the same thread of the type of motivation that got them there. And I feel like Gurudev, if people take it and say, oh, Gurudev was very lenient, sometimes people even take issue with it, that he was too lenient or something. But I don't see it that way. I think Gurudev really wanted that devotees will feel for themselves the responsibility and the accountability to their spiritual life. There's a value in that, and there's a value in a person taking charge of that for their own self, that has more long running duration. Like you can arrange things in such a way that just out of fear of being chastised or retribution or being kicked out, people will do things. But as soon as the whip goes away, then people just can do whatever. So it's like Gurudev was not just, in my observation, my understanding, my opinion, he wasn't just encouraging people to do whatever, but he wanted to give them some space to learn for themselves or feel for themselves the importance of spiritual life and want to take it up for that reason. So he put a lot of trust on them because he knew that that type of approach is what ultimately succeeds in the long run. That's what continues. And I think that's just a really beautiful sensibility that he had. And
I feel like that was, you've expressed that really nicely. And yeah, I feel like that was something special about Gurudev. You know, like he was encouraging us to take more of a mature attitude, you know, in our practice. Right. As you said, you know, we are accountable ourselves. We take responsibility ourselves. That you know, we're not just leaning on some system of right and wrong, but or a structure or fear, but you know, that he wanted to draw out our own inner drive and inspiration to move forward out of our own desire.
And it's like, you know, sometimes I saw one time dispute, two devotees that were having a dispute over who was going to do the certain service, so they each wanted to do it different. They each wanted to be in charge of it or something, and it had been going on for a couple of weeks.
This was something that you observed yourself.
Yeah,
Directly.
and I knew it was going. I mean, I just overheard it. I knew it was going on, and a couple of times when we were sitting there in the darshan, it would come up, and sometimes
These were like personal servitors of Gurudev, or
I could just say. I mean, I think if I name them, you know them, but it's not. I don't know.
but I mean, the service was directly related to Gurudev.
I don't remember exactly
what
the particular service was. And it came up a couple of times. It was getting tense. I mean, I could feel like there was tension building, and it was. And one day, I think I was in there to ask a question, and it was just me, Gurudev, and I think some, his normal just servitors that are there. And then this issue had kind of been boiling over, so they came in, and I just waited because that was more serious. And they both kind of pleaded their case to Gurudev, like, I should be the one because of this, and I should be the one because of this. And Gurudev didn't basically give him an answer. He just listened to both of them and gave like a very general, just very general encouraging, like, you're both nice servitors. I hope you can serve nicely, or something, like very almost not an answer. And my impression there was like, Gurudev's thinking like, you have the, like, we preach it every day, humility, tolerance, give honor to others. Like, you have the tools to work this out. And if it's almost like if a teacher comes or walks around the class and sees you're struggling and then just comes and answers it for you and keeps walking, it's like, yeah, you got the answer right, but it actually didn't help you in terms of your education. Like, you got that one answer right, but it's like the teacher doesn't want to answer all the questions for you because they want you to do the work, because that's where you learn the thing. And I felt like Gurudev almost like avoided giving an answer because he felt that they had the capacity to learn. They needed to be in that situation and practice what they have heard many times. And he didn't want to just step in and make a ruling on one side, and because it doesn't, no one learns anything from that. And, so I feel like, he was very attentive and sensitive to the heart level of transformation, and that was the important thing. So it wasn't always just like, here's X, Y, and Z rules, and if you check the boxes, you're good. And if you, like, he left some mystery there because he wanted people to take the responsibility to try to apply things. And I've heard him say things in different times that, because I would see that and I would get that impression, and then I'd be like, am I just making this up? But then I'd hear him say things at other times that I was like, no, I really think like he's well aware of what he's doing. And so I mean, even to the extent I heard him say that he's like, I don't want to give answers. If I think that the person can know it or learn it, I want them to work it out. I want them to put the effort into anyway, so.
Yeah, I heard from Bhakti Lalita that sometimes Gurudev would give that answer, like if some senior devotee was asking, like, what should I do in this situation? And Gurudev would say sometimes that you're an experienced, mature devotee, you should be able to come to some resolution yourself.
Right.
So, yeah. I also experienced myself with Gurudev that, like, there were certain things that I was doing wrong, and he saw I was doing wrong, but he didn't say anything. And it was only years later when I realized, oh, actually he wasn't happy about that, or he didn't like that. But he didn't explain it at the time because he wanted me to work it out for myself.
Right. Yeah, he wants you to feel it for your, it's like, because that's why I come back to the idea of like honor system, or like as Guru Maharaj said, none can deceive us if we don't like to deceive ourselves. So there's some responsibility on the part of the practitioner, disciple, student, to want for our own reasons, for our own internal reasons, where no one can see what's going on, like what goes on in our consciousness. Like Krishna sees it, Guru sees it, but maybe others don't. But it's like that's where the progress or the cleaning or the transformation or the growth has to happen. So it's like we have to want that for ourselves and want to look inside and say, how am I taking this? How, like, that's why I said Yukta-vairagya, because it's, you know, if someone wanted to, it's the ultimate loophole. I can do anything, I can engage anything in the service of Krishna, no matter how mundane. And as long as I did it for Krishna, or it's like, you know, it gets to like a gray area where, so it's like the only real safeguard that exists there is that we have to want to not mislead ourselves.
Right. Well, Tungarasa has it. She added in the comments here how sincerity is emphasized so much.
Right. And sincerity, again,
safeguard.
It's somewhat ethereal. Like, what is sincerity? It's a hard thing to put a finger on. It's somewhat abstract, somewhat ethereal, or it can be. But that's why we read that's why it's, you know, also in that same line of verses we were just reading, it said the association of a pure devotee is like, because it's like our own, left to our own devices to feel out what spiritual sincerity is. You know, that's an open-ended conversation. But when we have some examples of like, oh, I trust that this person is sincere, and what I'm reading about and hearing from them, I believe that they are living that, then we have a more clear sort of impression to try to understand in ourselves what sincerity is. Then we think, oh, well, what did Gurudev say? Or what would Guru, it's like we have a frame of reference for what our own inner sincerity should be striving for. Anyway, I'll stop there because I'm kind of rambling now.
Oh, very nice. Anyone else want to add anything to that, or any comments on the other verses that we've just been through?
Oh, just one thing about Yukta-vairagya. Once I heard a devotee saying that Guru Maharaj says that Yukta-vairagya is the view that everybody else is serving, but I'm not. And then I came back, I heard it again, and it was exactly this. So Yukta-vairagya is the view that everybody else is serving, but I am not. So everything is serving around me.
I mean, I think we need to see the context to that, because I mean, Yukta-vairagya is referring to properly
utilize
proper renunciation. Proper, literally, it means proper renunciation, properly adjusted renunciation.
Yes, I couldn't structure it now and verbalize, but I think it has something to do with everything you said.
No, I mean, if I was going to give my interpretation, it's another example of it's another way of saying more tolerant than a tree, more humble than a blade of grass, to drive the emphasis that how should we assess our own utilization. Like if we say, oh, this thing is normally mundane, and I may have mundane motivations that are wanting me to do it, but I'm going to try to do it in service, or sometimes we have to do it in service, like even though we prefer not to. It's like, I don't want to deal with those things because that really mess with my mind. I'm vulnerable to that, but I have to for service. We have no choice. We have to try. But I think, because then again, what we're left with is that some degree of self-assessment, some degree of self-appraisal is how genuine am I actually trying to do this for service versus my own gratification. At some point, that some question of that is going to arise in a person. And so I think another way of raising the bar even higher, Guru Maharaj is saying, when you have to ask yourself that question, just as a safe standard, think that other people are doing it right and you're probably doing it wrong. It's just another way of driving home the importance of wanting to be careful and aware of how we apply this.
Mm.
That's sort of how I take it. It's like it's the general principle, but Guru Maharaj just kind of going to like an esoteric level of how that sensibility should feel to sort of to drive the point home.
Approaching differently, not what I am going to utilize, but what are my intentions really behind saying that I'm going to utilize this for service.
Right, and we've heard a story. I mean, just as a simple, I mean, we've heard this story that I guess one day Gurudev got an email from someone, I can't remember. Well, anyway, one of the other countries, a devotee wrote him an email and said, Gurudev, you'll be very happy to, or you'll be very excited to know that I'm getting married. And then you've heard this story, Vijaka, and then Gurudev
I haven't.
Gurudev made I think someone was reading him the email, and then Gurudev made the comment that I think the excitement is mostly with him. So, it's that, we can Yukta-vairagya-ify anything in our mind, but we want to have some awareness that our own signing off on it is not necessarily the standard. We're actually striving for a standard that's been defined already, not making it up as we go, and some sensibility to want to remind ourselves of that and aim for that. It's important. It's necessary.
Yeah, it can be a dangerous license, that this Yukta-vairagya. And
I like that term, Yukta-vairagya-fy.
Yeah.
Yukta-vairagya-fy, anything.
That was a good one. And one point that Srila Sridhar Maharaj has made is that the Goswamis, Rupa and Sanatan, they established the authenticity of this principle, Yukta-vairagya, in their writings, but they didn't apply it themselves.
Right.
because they didn't want people to think they were promoting it as an excuse, like, oh, so we can do whatever we want. We can Yukta-vairagya everything.
Exactly. And I'll even add on to, I was one of the I can't remember, it was an appearance day maybe of one of the Goswamis, or one of the festivals related to it, the Goswamis, and Gurudev said, he said, they spoke all these, this is the same point you're saying, they gave the full scriptural authority and backing for the concept of Yukta-vairagya. This is not a frivolous thing. They put all the arguments. But he said at that time, the Gyanis was a very popular renunciation, Gyanis, just raw renunciation was very popular, and it was a very common metric of spiritual legitimacy in the society. Right. And they knew that with the ideas that we're presenting are going to be so revolutionary. Not only are we saying Yukta-vairagya, but we're also saying, the amorous pastimes of Krishna are the highest. Like, there's many things that they were trying to establish that were gonna like turn heads. And so Gurudev said they took it upon themselves to lead such an extreme example of renunciation so that no one could question them. That coming from them, you can't write it off. If they were doing anything frivolous, then the whole thing would have been undermined. So it's like the Gyanis who take pride in the renunciation look at the Goswamis and like, we can't do that. We don't know how they do that, just from a renunciation point of view. And then on top of that, so they took all those sacrifices to protect the integrity of that message, knowing that it will be met with suspicion and also eventually abused. They wanted to set that foundation. Like, this is a serious thing. It has spiritual roots, and they didn't want that to be compromised in any way. So their own example was above and beyond what it needed to be, just so that there could be no question.
Yeah, very nicely articulated. Nice. Okay, well. It was
I
so
have-
Sunyash, were you gonna say something, Prabhu?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to clarify what I understood, whether I understood it right. Like when Govindanandini Didi said that Yukta-vairagya means that seeing others sacrificing for Krishna, that is engaging everything for Krishna, and we are not. Meaning, like most, like Nrsingha Prabhu explained, that most of the times we think that we are actually utilizing it for Krishna, but eventually we're doing it for ourselves and think that we're using it for Krishna. And
Oh,
actually
your sound
thinking,
is it just me or is your sound gone?
No, it was okay for me. It was
I,
fine.
No,
I
we
could
can't
hear.
hear. Oh, is it just me who can't hear anyone?
I can hear. Can you not?
Oh, it's my connection, my internet. I just had a notice pop up. Okay, it's back. Yeah, sorry. I missed the last minute there.
yeah, so I was saying that like the example that Govindanandini Didi said, that Yukta-vairagya means seeing others utilizing everything for Krishna and we are not. And when Nrsingha Prabhu said that we tend to think that we are actually utilizing it for Krishna, but eventually we're doing it for ourselves, and we're just telling ourselves that we're utilizing it for Krishna. Then,
What? So let me just clarify real quick. I didn't mean to come across as like that it's that extreme. I mean, I sometimes think that way because I try to be little, poke myself, but it's by degrees. Everything is by degrees. So, you know, it's not that everything is, yeah.
What I'm trying to say is is it the way, like, is it that, did I understand it right, that what you said? Was it like that?
I mean, I think it's similar to the idea Guru Maharaj says, you know, if you have a $5 business, then you can only start a business that's worth $5. But if you only have $5, you can only start a business that's worth $5. But if you have the opportunity to invest with a millionaire, then your $5 now holds way more value than just $5 itself. You're combining your resources with someone that's way more better equipped. So the idea of serving under Guru, serving under Vaishnavas, it's that our own sensibility to use things for Krishna is going to be somewhere on the spectrum. There's going to be some degree of, you know, material, whatever, attachment, impression, whatever it is. It's okay. That's normal. That's the process. But there's going to be many, many higher levels of refinement of spiritual purpose and devotion and faith that are possible. So it's like, if I offer a stick of incense to the Lord, I may do it somewhat attentively. I'll space out halfway through. I'll think of something else. I'll remember what I'm doing. Some days it'll be formal. Some days it'll just be ritual out of habit and I'm distracted. So there's Yukta-vairagya there. We're using things in the service, but it's limited by whatever my capacity is. So when we trust or have connections or relationships where we see like, oh, you know, Guru, Vaishnav, other sadhus, you know, devotees experienced, this same energy that I'm trying to use in the service of the Lord that has some degree of mixture, if I can serve in connection or in combination or, you know, under someone that has a higher degree of Yukta-vairagya in the sense of their spiritual purposes and motives are more evolved, then Guru Maharaj said, you get, to use the expression, like you get paid by their coin. So it's like, if I'm trying to serve the Lord directly, there's some value in that. We're not trying to diminish that. But if I can combine my efforts with someone whose heart is more clearly defined and more developed in its spiritual intentions, then my service effort is being like, Krishna is tasting that high quality effort from that Vaishnava, or their high quality of devotion, and my effort is contributing to that. That's that's going to bring us, it's like an investment. I invested this much, but I got back this much. So it's almost like Guru Maharaj give analogies like this, where you want to invest with those who have more spiritual taste and development, because when your little contribution is combined with their higher quality of service, then you're also going to be uplifted from that beyond whatever your own level is. Did I get clear? Did that relate to the question? Is that?
Yeah, I got to understand that. Yeah.
Mm. And not to diminish our effort. We want to, it's both sides. It's like, we want our effort, like, here, it'll be better. Like, you higher quality devotees, so let me give you all my resources and you can serve the Lord. That's okay. But then back to the other point, we were saying, Gurudev also sometimes like, no, you hold on to that, because I want you to learn how to serve with that. Like, make your mistakes, whatever you need to. But so it's like, we're fortunate to have service opportunities because we learn from them. We try our best, we make mistakes, we learn, and it's all, helpful and good if the intention is to progress in that way.